How would you know that in a relationship you're actually connecting to someone not just because of bodily looks, emotional support, intellectual interest, material achievements, but I'm actually connecting to this person in a spiritual way? What determines that? Because anyone can say it, but there has to be objective, clearly identifiable factors that help us understand we're connecting to someone spiritually. And once we know what these factors are, we can look at all of our relationships and ask ourselves, do I have spiritual relationships or do I have material relationships? And remember, material relationships will let you down. Thank you for coming this evening. Really happy to be here. And thank you to Saj for the nice introduction. You could be like cabin crew on Virgin Airways, you know. That sounded very... Sorry, these are in my mind. I fly so much now. So, an honor to be with you. And this evening we are discussing a beautiful topic, how to really connect deeply with others. They say we live in a world of crowded loneliness. We're surrounded by people. We have so many means of connecting, but sometimes we feel like we don't deeply relate or reciprocate with many people. And so what is that science of how to actually have deep connections and meaningful relationships? We'll kind of explore a little bit. I'll share a few ideas with you. It will be a little bit, although this is a presentation here and stuff, I'll just share a few ideas. It will be pretty spontaneous, and then I'll be happy to kind of hear from all of you and see what thoughts, what questions, what insights you may have as well. Thousands of years ago in India, there was a king, and his name was Bhatrahari. He lived in a place called Avanti. Now in India, the Kumbh Mela is going on. So the Kumbh Mela is said to take place in different regions of India, and one of them is Avanti. It's a very Ujjain, a very, very spiritually powerful place. So he was a king there. And he was also a poet. And the story of Bhatrahari's life was that he wrote 3 compositions in his life. The first poem he wrote was called Niti Shatakam, the 100 verses of knowledge. The second poetic composition he had was known as Shringara Satakam, the 100 verses of irresistible beauty. And the third composition and the final composition was known as Vairagya Satakam, the 100 verses of detachment. From knowledge to irresistible beauty and love to detachment. What was the journey that linked together these 3 poetic compositions? Would you like to know? He was a king, he was powerful, he was successful, he had dominion over so many different regions. He was loved by everyone, which is hard because when you manage, it's difficult to please everyone, but he managed. And therefore, people looked at him as the ideal ruler. He wasn't just a Raja, a king, but he was known as a Raja Rishi, a king who was also a great thinker, someone who ruled with sensitivity. And therefore they asked him, can you write 100 verses in poetic composition about how to lead with love? And so his first composition was known as Niti Shatakam, and it's very beautiful. You can read many verses in that composition which help you understand how to navigate life and how to inspire people. It's hard to inspire people sometimes, but in that poetic composition he gives many secrets. But success wasn't enough for him, because in this life you can be successful, you can have achievements, you can rise very, very high, but Everyone is looking for love. And so at a certain point, what happened is he met the love of his life. And the love of his life was known as Pingala. And he fell in love with her madly. Her attraction for him and his attraction for her was irresistible. It was intense. And therefore he fell madly in love with her, and he thought his life couldn't get any better because now he had success, but also he had love. And so in that ecstasy of feeling that loving connection with Pingala, he wrote his second composition, Shringara Satakam, and that was the romantic one. And your eyes are like flowers. And when you speak, it feels like the flowing river. And all these kind of, better than me. It's clearly I'm not the best at these kind of things, but... So he wrote the Shringara Satakam, 100 verses of irresistible beauty describing Pingala's beauty. But then remember what his third composition was, right? Vairagya Satakam, the 100 verses of detachment. So how did he go from irresistible beauty to detachment? One day it said a sage came to the kingdom of Bhatrahari, and as with any cultured person, they serve saintly people with great respect and honor and deep affection, and that's what he did. And the saintly person was so touched by the hospitality of Bhatrahari that he said, now I will give you the best of gifts. So Bhatrahari was thinking, I have everything. I have success, I have power, I even have love. What more could I want in my life? But he knew the sage would give him something amazing. So he was waiting with bated breath. What will the sage give me? The sage went into his bag and pulled out a fruit. Got a fruit? I was thinking it's going to be a little more dynamic than a fruit. So the sage looked at him and said, no, it's no ordinary fruit. This fruit lends immortality to anyone who eats it. And therefore, I'm giving you this fruit. You're happy, you're experiencing the beauty of life, and now you can live forever. Wonderful. The king was overjoyed. I've got the fruit of immortality. The sage left. The king was about to eat it, and then he thought, no, but what's the point of being immortal? Because it means one day Pingala will leave. And what's the point of life without Pingala? And therefore he thought, no, what's more wise is rather than eating the fruit myself, I'll give it to Pingala. Because then she'll, my love of my life, she'll be immortal and I'll never be separated. So he came to Pingala and he said, I want to give you a gift. She said, I have everything. I'm sharing in the wealth of your kingdom. I've got your love. I've got everything I could ever want. He said, no, I have something very, very special. So with bated breath, she was waiting, and then out of the bag, he pulled out a fruit. It was like, a fruit? No, it's no ordinary fruit. It's the fruit of immortality. Wow. So Pingala took it. And as she was going home, she thought to herself, I've got this fruit of immortality, and the king gave it to me because he loves me so much. But what he doesn't realize is that I have another love. I've given my heart to someone else. The plot thickens. And therefore, she said, every day she was going out with a charioteer from the kingdom, and she had given her heart to that charioteer, although the king had given his heart to her. So she thought to herself, I can take this fruit of immortality, but what's the point? One day the charioteer will leave. And what's life without the charioteer? So she came to the charioteer. She said, I've got something for you. He was thinking, this is it. She's got everything, all the opulence, all the power, all the influence. She said, I want to give you the best. He was like, please. And she pulled out a fruit. It was like a fruit. I was expecting something more. And I said, no. Said to the charioteer, this is the fruit of immortality. So the charioteer took it. He was riding away. But what she didn't realize is she had given her heart to him, but he had given her heart, his heart, to another lady. And so he went to her and said, I've got something for you, the fruit of immortality. So she took the fruit of immortality. It's very, in one sense, unknown lady. As the unknown lady was walking away, she thought to herself, all my life I wanted to have a relationship with that one person. But he was far too influential. He was far too powerful. And he had far more than anything I could ever give him. But this one person who I wanted to have a relationship with, I now have something that he doesn't have. I have the fruit of immortality. And therefore, with this fruit, I will be able to win his favor. And so she began walking all the way to the palace of Bhadrahari. And she knocked on the door. I need to see the king. You can't see the king. No, I have something. This better be good. And she came in front of Bhadrahari. Bhadrahari was thinking, who is this audacious woman? She thinks she's got something to give me. She said, I've got something to give you that even you don't possess. And out of her bag, she pulled out a fruit. Because of that fruit. A fruit. And then he looked at it. And it looked very familiar. And he realized, that's the fruit I gave to Pingala. And as a detective, he retraced the steps and understood all the hands that the fruits had passed through, all the way back to him. This, dear friends, is the original love triangle. Love square, I don't know what you call it, a love pentagon or whatever, I don't know, whatever it is. We give our hearts to people. We give our hearts to so many things in this world. We give our hearts to trying to achieve. And then once we've given our heart, sometimes we just feel a lack of reciprocation. We just feel a lack of connection. We feel a lack of fulfillment. And perhaps that's the story of the world. The story of the world is everyone's looking for love, but so often it's frustrated love. Now they do the Instagram reels that go viral, which are to do with self-development, center around 3 topics. Number 1, how do I find my purpose? Number 2, how can I have better physical and mental health? And number 3, how can I find love? So that's what everyone is struggling with, and that's what everyone is looking for. So I'm going to share some ideas with you about this. How do we actually connect deeply with others? But let me just ask you, when we look to making a connection or a relationship with others, what do you think people are attracted by that cause them to want to have a relationship with someone? Just totally blue sky, tell me. What attracts us to think, I'd love to have a relationship with that person? Loneliness. So, but what is it in that person that we're looking for? So we're looking for company. Company, okay. What else?
A good listener.
Pardon me?
A good listener.
A good listener, someone who emotionally can empathize with you. Very good. What else?
Chemistry.
Chemistry. He says, what do you mean by chemistry? Chemistry is a big subject. Talking about the periodic table, or what are you talking about exactly here?
So like chemistry and like electricity.
Electricity. Attraction. Fatal attraction. attraction. Yeah, let's just be honest. Physical looks, physicality. Frequency. Okay, what's their energy? How do they make you feel when you're around them? What else?
Authenticity.
Authenticity. Their authenticity or your authenticity?
I think I'm attracted to people that are authentic.
Oh, okay. People who are real, like, okay. People who are very, what you see is what you get.
Someone you can grow with.
Someone who brings out the potential in you. Someone who you feel is empowering. Someone who you feel encourages. Very good. Thank you. Anything else?
The values.
Pardon me?
The values.
Their values, what they stand for, their ethics, their the principles that they live by. Yeah. Was that a hand?
I was going to say values.
That's it. No, you weren't. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, there are different. You could say different platforms upon which we kind of connect. This is one kind of analysis that's given in the Vedic literature. That one platform on which we connect, or one basis on which we connect, is bodily looks. Another one is we're attracted to people because of what they've achieved, what they've done in their life. That's impressive and attractive. Sometimes we look to connect with people who are famous, who have a sense of being sought after. We connect with people because of emotional support, what they do for us, empowerment, how they make us feel, how they improve us as a person. Sometimes we connect with people because of intellectual interest, what they do to stimulate our way of thinking, the wonder, the knowledge, the insight, the contribution they make to our life in terms of understanding ourselves and the world in a better way. And then spiritual essence, something deeper that's pulling us towards that person. Now, what the Vedic scriptures basically explain is that on the top of this hierarchy is spiritual essence, which is eternal. That's an eternal principle that's never changing, that endures beyond everything that's mutable in the material world. And then there's a kind of like a continuum to being temporary. And so everything below the soul is temporary to different extents. And bodily looks is probably the most temporary out of all of those things. It's the most transient. It's the most changeable. And so the interesting point is that oftentimes we connect with people because of a combination of these, but there is a certain pushing, there is a certain driver which is more prominent. And according to what we base the relationship on primarily as the source of attraction, that determines the depth of the connection and the duration of the connection. Therefore, oftentimes we find relationships become toxic, relationships become break down because they're not based on an eternal principle. And so, just as these things are temporary or eternal, the relationship also will be eternal or temporary based on what is the driver behind that relationship. So basically the Vedic teachers explain that it's not that physical attraction is unimportant. It's not that emotional like-mindedness is unimportant. However, all of these things should not be the basis of the relationship. There has to be a deeper connection, a deeper sense of why we're together. And if the relationship is based on that, then the relationship will be fulfilling, and the relationship will actually awaken us to our highest potential. So now, let me ask you the golden question: what makes something a spiritual relationship? Because like two people are together, and naturally they'll be like, we have a very spiritual relationship. Everyone says that. Everyone thinks their connection with their partner is very spiritual. Of course, we are soulmates. But what actually makes something a spiritual relationship? How would you know that in a relationship you're actually connecting to someone not just because of bodily looks, emotional support, intellectual interest, material achievements, but I'm actually connecting to this person in a spiritual way? What determines that? Because anyone can say it, but there has to be objective, clearly identifiable factors that help us understand we're connecting to someone spiritually. And once we know what these factors are, we can look at all of our relationships and ask ourselves, do I have spiritual relationships or do I have material relationships? And remember, material relationships will let you down. So how do you spiritualize a relationship? Over to you. Mr. Chemistry.
Seeing them in connection to Krishna.
Seeing in them in connection to divinity, Krishna or God. What does it mean to see someone in connection with Krishna? What does that mean? Like when you see them, you kind of pretend Krishna's next to them. Like, what does that mean? I want to know, how do I have a relationship with this person? As in, not I'm a monk, but yeah, just like for, you get what I'm saying. How do I know I have a spiritual relationship with this person? Because I may say it. So like, okay, you're saying I see them in connection with Krishna. What does that mean?
That the spark of the soul within them comes from Krishna and is very dear to Krishna.
So, okay, so I know that. All right, I won't challenge you too much at this point, but I'll just write that down. You see them in connection with God. All right, what else?
When you go through challenges together.
Does that inherently make something, business partners go through challenges with each other. Does that mean they have a spiritual relationship? I want you to get to the essence. What makes something a spiritual relationship? Because I'm not buying it. People just tell me, I've got a spiritual relationship. Well, convince me. Yeah.
So marriage is the sacramental element of a spiritual relationship. I'm married, and I remember the time when, for the ceremony, you are connected, and you do the ferras around that. You are elevated.
7 lives, right?
Yeah, well, you're elevated to a godlike status. My father-in-law washed my feet to be purified. And in that moment, that connection is there. And it's done astrologically, because obviously the Janmatras are all checked. I had to fast at a certain time because it was an optimal time in terms of being married. I got married in India. My marriage was at night, under the stars. And on that basis, you are become, Krishna Radha.
Okay, so you're saying
If your relationship gets to marriage,
yeah.
a sacramental marriage, not a civil ceremony in some nice country estate.
Not just the ritual of it. You're saying
The
actual.
both, fundamentally, it's in your heart at that moment.
Okay, but do people go through that sacramental marriage and then get divorced?
They do.
They do. So that's clearly not a spiritual relationship, right?
No. But then it was.
Oh, at that point it was.
Then it was built on something else. Then it
Okay.
was built on material, bodily.
So it's not the sacramental thing that makes it spiritual. It's the.
Both have to believe in it. And unfortunately, in our generations, very few
It's not the mere performance,
do
the
believe in
sacramental ritual.
AI is debating you. My God, this is the world we're living in, It's like, Hare Krishna. Okay, no, thank you so much for raising that. I'm just going to get a few more ideas around the room. Yep, okay, go for it.
I think life's breath is sacred. We can't explain it. So every breath that's taken, even in nature, it's a spiritual connection. We're connected because we are all alive and living. And that can't really be explained. So life's breath is what connects us, and it's a spiritual connection. We may not know it, but we're still connected spiritually. Maybe we're just discovering that.
Okay. See, what I'm trying to ask you is, I could have a spiritual relationship with someone, I could have a material relationship with someone. Agreed?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
if I wanted to know whether my relationship with this person is material or spiritual, how would I know?
It's centered around.
What it's centered around. So what is a spiritual relationship centered around?
No expectations.
Oh, sir.
No expectations.
We can give the example
Okay.
of gopis and Krishna relationship. We can give the example of gopis with Krishna.
Gopis with Krishna. Okay. I mean, like, I just want you to tell me very practically. I have a relationship with, I've just got to be very careful here. X person. X is not a good word, actually. Y person. Y person. Y person. How do I know it's spiritual? Okay, you're saying Krishna and the gopis. What does that mean? How do I know I have a spiritual relationship with someone? Yeah, Saj.
Perhaps when the activities that you carry out together go beyond the mundane, so they're not material in a sense. There's an element of service or something which is spiritualizing your activities.
Activities rooted in the eternal. So we're doing something together, we're connecting, we're aspiring for something together which has a spiritual goal. Okay, good. Yeah.
I mean, something I think of is in a material relationship, you're looking at each other and you're kind of thinking, oh, what can I get from you? What can you get from me? And you're kind of just like in a kind of cycle. Whereas if you're in a spiritual relationship, you're kind of walking side by side, but looking towards how you can like do betterment to each other, society, and like doing.
Okay, so it's how you can contribute to the other person.
See what to get.
No expectation.
No expectation. Okay. Yeah, selfless, no expectation.
Devoted to each other.
Humble and kind.
Devoted to each other. I don't know, like plenty of people stay together for their whole life, but they're not necessarily like in love with each other. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just putting it out there. Yes, it was yes.
I think when every person tries to see the other person beyond their shortcomings, their roles, it's just try to get to the essence of what the other person is and grow together and encourage each other, and then having a common goal that is spiritual, like growing together spiritually.
A common spiritual goal. Thank you. You know, you are right. I'm just being, I have to play the role. Yes.
Mutual respect towards each other in what each other wants. Because it might not be the same thing, but having the full respect of each other, you may have the ultimate goal, but how you go about it is in different ways. So you respect each other, how you connect.
Okay. I think a lot of you are telling me very good qualities that need to be there for any level of relationship. Like these are human qualities. Like we have to have mutual respect, empathy, we have to be committed to each other. I think these stand for any relationship you want to have. But what's that extra thing which makes something a spiritual relationship?
Understanding and helping them with their sadhana and bhakti.
Okay, so helping them to spiritually grow. Good. Yep, anyone else? Yep.
Say offering a relationship to Krishna and doing everything that you do together as an offering, but seeing it as a sacrifice and then bring that love to Krishna together.
So serving God together, serving and offering everything. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like giving it out as an offering.
To God. Okay, cool. Yep.
Serving a person in a way that goes beyond just the body. So seeing them as not just the body, but what makes it spiritual is seeing how can I serve their soul, not their body.
Okay. Few more ideas, yeah?
A bit of an unconditional love with each other. You love each other, but again, it's sort of related to expectations, but it goes beyond that. Like, more of love towards each other, like how you have love for Krishna. So you also kind of have love for each other, but without a lot of, let's say, materialistic goals or like transactions and things like that.
Okay, yeah. So similar, like selfless, no expectation, and unconditional. Thank you so much. Yeah, just a couple more. Yeah, yep.
Being able to be comfortable in your own skin around that person.
Feeling comfortable to be yourself.
Exactly, and just at ease.
Being totally, yeah. Yep. Someone else? Yep. Double, yep.
How can I make this, or how can I help this person become the best version of themselves?
Awaken their potential. Good.
Having a tolerance and forgiveness quality.
Tolerance and forgiveness. Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, we could go on. Yeah, okay, go on. Awesome.
Would you say serving the relationship with God mutually is with serving the other person's relationship with God? Does that make sense?
Serving the other person in their relationship with God. Yeah, so helping them to connect with God. Yeah. I think we had that, right? Yeah, connection with God. Yeah.
Authenticity, just becoming your true self. Someone that encourages that, you know. You may not know what your true self is. You think you know, and then someone that opens up your eyes to your ego. And that's
Yeah.
like someone that encourages ego death. So you can rise above that and form a real connection. But it's kind of like you have to go through this process. Kind of
Wonderful,
like
yeah.
someone that understands the dualities of how things are, like thin line between love and hate type thing, you know, but both
Yeah.
have a place.
Yeah.
And someone that just helps you within the dark and the light, you know, that kind of, does that make sense?
Yeah. No, definitely. I'm going to come back to that actually, yeah. Okay, yeah, this is this is a good list. And it's really something to think deeply about. I think some of the things that we've put up here definitely are qualities required for any type of like amicable relationship. But there are certain things there which are really helping to upgrade that relationship and make it a spiritual relationship. And if we were to summarize what makes something a spiritual relationship according to the Bhagavad Gita, is basically three things. What is your vision of that person? What's the role that you play in that person's life? And what's the goal of your relationship? Based on these three factors, you can actually understand how spiritual any relationship actually is. The first one is whether it's a partner, a parent, a child, a sibling. It's not automatically a spiritual relationship. The first thing that makes it a spiritual relationship is what is your vision of that person? Do you see them as a body? Do you see them as a relative? Do you see them as someone who you own? Or as someone that you should be able to control? Or do you see them as a soul on a journey, a soul that was in a different body, and a soul that in this chapter of life has somehow come in contact with you, and a soul who you've been brought together with to serve together? So it's very, very subtle. What is your vision of that person actually? Oftentimes what happens in loving relationships, or relationships that seem to be loving relationships, is there's a sense of ownership. I own this person, whether it's your child or whether it's a partner, and in the beginning it's very endearing actually when someone has that level of places that level of importance on you, that they feel like they own you. It's actually very nice. But later on, it actually becomes very suffocating, and it can become very, very toxic. And so, in spiritual relationships, one understands, I don't own anyone. I don't control anyone. I don't have unrealistic expectations of anyone. Rather, I see that they're a spirit soul. They have their own free will, and they're on their own journey. And in this chapter of existence, we've come together, and there's something that we need to learn from each other and contribute to each other. And therefore, your children are not your children. Your children are souls that have been entrusted to you for this chapter of life so that you can serve them. And it's very, very different to see your child as someone who came from your body and who you therefore have certain dominion over. And it's a very different thing to see your child as a soul who's on a journey, who has to make their own decisions and who you're trying to empower in this phase of existence. It's a very, very different thing. And so the first thing that makes a relationship spiritual is how do you actually see that person deeply? Only when you see that person as a spirit soul can it actually be said to be a spiritual relationship. The second thing that makes something a spiritual relationship is what is your role in their life. And in a spiritual relationship, the role is that I'm, as many of you have mentioned, my role in this relationship is to serve and allow this person to awaken their full potential and ignite all their full beauty and qualities and abilities that they've been invested with. Now someone may say, yeah, I do that. But just look in a relationship and look at the activities, look at the time that you spend together, look at the kind of language that you use in that relationship and ask yourself, is that really the role you're playing? Oftentimes what happens is relationships just kind of descend into this sense of what we can get from the person. And then the relationships again become very, very degraded on that scale and then fall within, again, the material realm. And so a real spiritual relationship is where we play a role of being a servant of that person to bring out their best. But there's one more thing that makes something a spiritual relationship, and that is, what is the goal of your relationship? What are you actually trying to achieve together? And the thing that makes something a spiritual relationship is when you look at each other and you say the goal of our relationship is to awaken spiritual happiness. The goal of our relationship is to together reconnect with divinity. The goal and purpose of why we even met each other is so that we can awaken pure love, spiritual love through our time together in this world. And when that becomes the orientation of the relationship, not what gratification what we can get, not what achievements we can realize in our relationships, not what, security or comfort this gives us, but what can we do to actually together achieve the spiritual perfection of life, that becomes a spiritual relationship. So now we begin to look at our relationships and realize it's not so easy, it's not so cheap to say that something is a spiritual relationship. Everyone may say that in a very romantic way, but it actually is a very, very deep commitment to spirituality that bonds people together. And when relationships are on that basis, then what happens is that the relationships actually flourish to their greatest potential. I'll just say one other thing. Is that okay? Can I say one other thing and then I'll kind of just open it up? Are we doing good for time? What's our time schedules?
You're good for time now. Yeah,
good for time. All right. According to the Vedic teachers, the world is a school. It's a school of love. The whole journey of life is about how to develop love. It's just a school of love. That's how you could actually describe the material world. It's a school of love. And according to the Bhagavad Gita, the world is a school of love, teaching you how to awaken that pure and highest type of love. And in this school of love, there are actually 4 classrooms. The first classroom is known as Brahmacharya. The second classroom is known as Grihastha. The third classroom is known as Vanaprastha. And the fourth classroom is known as sannyas. Stay with me. I'm giving you a model and then I'm going to try and relate it to your life. So according to the Vedic teachers, most people in their life would live for 100 years. Nowadays, yeah, right, good luck. No. But let's just take it like that as a model. So what was explained, that the first 25 of your years of your life are brahmacharya, the second 25 years grihastha, the third 25 years vanaprastha, and the final years of your life sannyas. What do these words even mean? Brahmacharya means student life. Grihastha means family life. Vanaprastha means retired life. And sannyas means renounced life. Right? You can see the progression. It's very neat, isn't it? It's very nice. The idea here was to learn. The idea here was to earn. The idea here was to turn. And the idea here is to burn. No. Return. That's more sane. So the way it would work is that actually for the first 25 years of their life, every single person would live student life, brahmacharya, celibate life. Celibate! Yes. Solitude, simplicity, silence, spending time alone. Alone? Yes. No relationships. Actually, not no relationships, but no, at least in this context, romantic relationships. Just spending time understanding yourself. Spending time connecting with God. Spending time understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, your emotional triggers, your own personality. How can you love someone when you don't know yourself? And so the biggest and first problem of the world is that people jump into a relationship without understanding themselves. And therefore the principle of brahmacharya was that you're preparing for love. In other words, unless you spend time in solitude, deeply connecting with yourself, it will be very, very difficult to connect to someone else in a deep way. And therefore the principle of brahmacharya was that you're preparing for love. And then what would happen is that you would enter a relationship, and that was all about practicing love. People enter a relationship and they think, this is it now, it's going to be the honeymoon for the rest of my life. And then it becomes very apparent after 1 or 2 years that it's not like that, and they think something's wrong. All of the chemistry has been lost. No, that's what's supposed to happen. Because in this phase of life, you're practicing love. Love is not chemistry. Love is commitment. Love is not about feelings. Love is about actions. Love is not about some kind of mystical movement of your heart, but it's about how much sacrifice you make for someone. That's the basis of real love. And so this stage of life teaches us that love is not cheap, and love is not just something which is a feeling, it's an act. Love comes about from commitment. And in Vanaprastha, the idea was that we're promoting love. After a lifetime of relationship, what felt like a lifetime, 25 years, what happens is you actually retire, you step away from things, you reflect, you forgive. Did you know that you can't actually develop deep love if you still have some bitterness, some resentment, some negativity in your heart towards someone? And so the Vanaprastha stage was like a time. I keep lifting this and not drinking anything. The Vanaprastha stage was a time when you could just retire from things, step back, reflect, forgive, learn your lessons. And then the idea of the final stage of life was that you're perfecting love. Then what happens is you actually detach yourself from everyone. Detach? How does that bring love? You detach yourself from your immediate people who you've given your life to, and you actually begin to accept the whole world as your family. In that way, love expands to an unlimited degree, because now you don't just direct it towards a few individuals, but you experience expanding love. So this is actually the way you awaken true divine spiritual love. Now you may look at your life trajectory and say, my God, I'm way off. I missed the boat on a few of these things, you know. So what the ancient teachers explain is that you can take the principle of every single one of these classrooms. The principle of every single one of these classrooms is a key ingredient which helps you to upgrade your love. The first principle is that don't forget to spend time alone, in solitude, disconnecting, navigating the inner world and finding God. If you don't find God, how will you be able to see divinity within others and connect to them on a spiritual level? It's just not possible. Therefore, the first kind of counterintuitive teaching to the world about how to find love is just spend time away from people sometimes. The second principle of the classrooms of love is that love is all about commitment and sacrifice and selflessness, and it's not just feelings, but it's about service. A teacher was asked by a student, what's the difference between liking and loving? And the teacher pointed to a flower and said, if you like it, then you'll go over to it, you'll pick it, you'll smell it, you'll enjoy it, and then you'll discard it. But if you love that flower, then you'll go to it, you'll protect it, you'll water it, you'll nourish it, you'll allow it to manifest its beauty, its fragrance, its color. And in that way, you love it. According to that estimation, how many of our relationships are about liking and how many of our relationships are about loving? So the second principle in the classrooms of love is that love is an act of selflessness. The third principle in the classrooms of love is that take time to reflect, take time to forgive, take time to heal from the wounds of the letdowns and the pain that people have caused and learn to let it go. The goal of life is not to remember all the terrible things that somebody did to you. The goal of life is to remember all the beautiful things that are happening to you every day. But while we're hijacked by all that negativity, we can't. So we need to promote our love by letting frustrations go. And then sannyas is the stage of life where we begin to see love in all directions. We begin to, because of our spiritual accomplishment, we're able to lovingly serve everyone, regardless of bodily relationship. And this is possible for everyone. This is something that each one of us can experience. Love is something more than romantic love. Nowadays, when we say the word love, people only think of romantic love. But actually, love is something much more all-encompassing than that. And love can expand to an unlimited degree to everyone and everything around us in that final stage if we've gone through the prior stages. And like this, if we actually fill our life with love, deep love, spiritual love, then we actually fulfill the purpose of life, because life is a school of love. And this is the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, the central teaching. And so these are some thoughts I wanted to share with you about how to actually deeply connect with others, because it's the biggest cause of heartache in the world. that people don't feel happy in relationships. And it's so sad, because that's the goal of life. But we need to know how to approach it so that we don't get hurt, but rather we feel deep fulfillment and spiritual happiness. Thank you very much. So those were some words from me. We have some time, is it? Or we don't have time?
No, we're going to have, well,
We do
please
have time.
give a warm thank you to Maharaj. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. We'd like to do a Q&A. If anyone has any questions for Maharaj, please fire away.
How do you practice sannyasa?
How do you practice sannyas? God, I was waiting for someone to ask that question. The idea of sannyas is more than a dress. It's more than something external. The idea of sannyas is that you give up the world of family life in order to embrace the whole world as your family. So sannyas means a life in which one dedicates themselves to serving everyone and everything around them. Progressively throughout our life, we begin to realize more and more that whenever I serve, whenever I'm selfless, it brings a type of joy that's very different to anything else I experience. And as those experiences accumulate more and more and more, one realizes there's nothing else actually to do in life. There's only the opportunity of service. And when one dedicates their life in that way, whatever mode of life they may be in, they may be a monk, they may be a housewife, they may be a student, but the moment your life is dedicated to contribution, you are a sannyasi. And that's what sannyas is, a life which is saturated with selfless service. Is that okay? Thank you. Yes?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for your talk. I wanted to ask, if we are spirit souls and our purpose is to reconnect with God, then why did we leave the spiritual world or leave God in the first place? And does that mean that even in the spiritual world, God's love could not fulfill us? And if that couldn't fulfill us, then how can anything in the material world make us feel fulfilled?
All right. Thank you so much for getting into the heart of the theological mystery. For love to exist, there has to be free will. Agreed? Like, there can't be force, there can't be coercion, there can't be a sense of, there has to be a volition, there has to be an individual choice. And so it's said that God, divinity, gives us one thing that He never takes away, and that's free will. So it's explained in the Sanskrit literatures that we all existed with God in the spiritual world. Now, we have free will. But your question is, why would we misuse that free will? Why would we ever want to leave? If it was so beautiful, if God's love didn't fulfill us, what can fulfill us? So why did we even leave that place? It's explained that it's not so much that we're dissatisfied in the spiritual world, but there's just a curiosity. Now you may say, but curiosity, like, why would you even be curious? That means there's a certain sense of vacuum in the heart. So it's described in the sense that it's not that we're dissatisfied, but we just want to experience a different life. And when that desire arises, then God creates this world as an opportunity for us to explore. So that's what we're doing here. We're all exploring. We're all trying to understand and find love. And when we realize that nothing here satisfies us, then we turn our attention back towards eternity. And then it said we enter back into the spiritual world. So the way that it's explained is not that we're dissatisfied and therefore we leave, but just that we have a curiosity. If that potentiality wasn't there, if God didn't give that opportunity and that capacity to use your free will in a certain way that, facilitates you to leave the spiritual world, in one sense that would be a greater evil, because then you don't have the volition, you don't have the opportunity to do it. So that's why we leave the spiritual world. There are deeper and deeper layers of actually understanding this. I don't know, do you want me to go into it deeper or?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. See, in another sense, this question, is this on? Can you put this up? This question is a little bit of an inconceivable question that's difficult to answer through, do you need something? That's difficult to answer through language. Why did we leave the spiritual world? Because in one sense we leave the spiritual world, but in another sense we don't leave the spiritual world. How is that possible? So according to Vedic cosmology, there's the spiritual world and there's the material world. With me? Material world, according to Vedic cosmology, is made up of 14 planetary systems, 14 levels. Right now, we are on Earth, which is right in the center. In Sanskrit, it's called Bhumandala. So we're right in the middle. Above our heavens, below our hells. London is kind of a bit of both. A bit of both. Now, as you go higher and higher in the material realm, what happens is that time dilates. Even Einstein talked about this when he talked about the relativity of time. So as you go higher in the material world, time dilates. So the highest, according to Vedic cosmology, the highest planet in the material world is called Brahmaloka. So one day on Brahmaloka is like 6 months here. Does that make sense? So for example, anyway, I won't go into that. So that's the point. So time dilates. Now when you get to the line between the material world and the spiritual world, time becomes zero. So it's said that the spiritual world is actually a timeless place. There's no time there. With me so far? It's the eternal present in the spiritual world. So now my question to you is, can you leave a place which has no time? Is that one of those strange but true? Can you leave a place which has no time? If you tell me yes, then my question to you will be when? So you can't actually leave a timeless place. Can you re-enter a timeless place? Well, when? So in a higher dimensional perspective, you're here in the material world, but you're not really here. Yeah, just you get a nightmare tonight or something after that statement. How do we understand that? It's hard. So when you try to describe this story in a linear narrative, we were in the spiritual world, and then we came to the material world, and then I came to Studio 108 and realized I'm a spirit being, and then I went back to the spiritual world. When you try to frame it as a linear narrative, it doesn't make sense, because you're talking about a story which spans 2 different time dimensions. So the deeper answer to your question, the first answer I gave you is that we left because we had free will. The deeper answer is that nobody actually leaves the spiritual world. Some things are just hard to explain through language. We have to recognize the limitations of language when we're trying to grasp some of these concepts. So in a sense, this world is real, we're here. In another sense, is unreal because it has no endurance in eternity, and therefore it's dreamlike. And so we're eternally in a relationship of love with God, and it's just a bad dream. Alright, I won't go too much more into that. I think I saw so many more hands, but I think we need to call it a day.